tell the people closest to you that you love them because you don't know when your time here is up.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Elliot Reeves. How are you doing on this wonderful, beautiful morning?
Angel, absolutely fantastic. It's a real honor to be on your show. As I was saying just before we started, I've been listening to it for a long time, and yeah, it's a true privilege to be here. So thank you so much.
Your show as well. It's like fan-based and fan-based, right? Like, wow, I got to listen and preparing, and it was just an amazing conversation. It's beautiful because you can sit while working. It's not fast-paced. Of course, you're looking now and then to see the facial reactions of an answer of a question, right? So I switch screens. Command and Tab helps that on the Mac, right? So just Command and Tab and then Command and Tab. But yeah, just amazing work that you're doing. Really honored to have you. But what would you say, if you had to connect the dots from then to now, would be responsible if you had to narrow it down to a talent that you had? What would you say that talent is?
Relentless obsession and perfectionism, probably. They say an overdone strength can be a weakness, and I often sort of walk that tightrope. I'm definitely somebody that's obsessive about getting my craft just right. And so, yeah, undoubtedly looking back, I sort of cringe looking back at my earlier interviews, through the lens of a sort of perfectionist. And it sounds maybe cliche to say, but definitely I've noticed a marked difference from then to now. So yeah, that's been a big thing, as you can probably relate to yourself.
Yeah, most definitely. Like, I listened to my episode 1 probably twice. It's scary to listen. Now I'm looking into it a bit differently because I had an experience while on a road trip, and I realized that I needed to give the younger version of myself more grace because the younger version was using all the tools and resources that was there. Well, who would you say you learned that ability to see the detail from? Who did you learn that from?
Undoubtedly, it's probably been the influence of certain people in my life. My parents have very high personal standards for themselves, I would say. And I would say the same about my wife as well. So, and just throughout life, I've always been inspired by and taken things from people who set the bar really, really high. Particularly around their means of, say, communication or the delivery of the work that they do. That's always been a big part of it. So yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
It's an ability to listen, not just with your eyes, but with every part of your being. The ability to have a conversation. And what occurs is there are 2 people you're listening to, the voice. I think there are 3 if I had to narrow it down amongst all of the other voices. There's the voice of the person you're having a conversation with, the inner voice, and then there seems to be another voice that's magnetized to the mic, right? It's just that voice is one that there's always a challenge. But how would you say you've been able to narrow down which voice to listen to in the midst of these conversations?
Oh, wow. I think just through experience, you learn to quiet the sort of inner voice and listen to the voice of the sort of, your true self, as it were. So, before any of my interviews, to give you a short insight, and I was saying to you before, I'm accustomed to having 90-minute conversations, so getting answers into as short a space as possible is a major challenge. But I tend to do a short sort of breathing exercise meditation before I go into interviews. So in effect, I feel as though I'm a conduit for, the universe. I am the universe experiencing itself, and I am like an antenna, just, facilitating a conversation with the intention of inspiring people and raising people's consciousness, just having an incredibly deep and powerful conversation. So setting that intention is like that's the ultimate goal, and everything else that unfolds thereafter just is allowed to happen. So, you're right, there are various different voices at work, but I like to try and guide the sort of highest power voice and let that one operate.
Now, for those that are listening, where's the best place for them to go to listen to these conversations?
Yeah, I mean, Inspired Edinburgh is the brand, so you can Google that. Elliot Reeves is probably an easier place for people to start if they don't know how to spell it. Edinburgh, which is in Scotland. And yeah, I mean, you can find me across everywhere social platforms at Elliot C. Reeves or at Inspired Edinburgh, which is like a fused version of the two words. So yeah, that's what I would encourage people to do.
And tell me one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years, please.
One other thing that I've done consistently. Um, I mean, I just like to think that I've improved myself over that time. Um, just learned lessons from all the conversations and all the experiences that I've had in order to become the best version of myself, which is still very much an ongoing process. But that, that's just part of everyday life, is that you always want to try and be improving. Just small 1%.
How does it make you feel when you look at what you have accomplished by focusing on yourself?
Proud in many respects. It's something that I don't do enough of. I think if you're somebody that's, dare I say, a sort of high performance individual or a high achiever, or you're always looking ahead, so you're rarely looking at how far you've come. But when you juxtapose where I was versus where I am now, and I know it within myself that I'm a very different being today than I was, a year ago, 3 years ago, 5, 10, etc. So yeah, you're right. I think a big part of it is just focusing on what you have achieved and not overlooking it. It's very easy to just continue looking ahead and not recognizing the things that you've achieved.
Why would you suggest other people do that? Focus on themselves, understanding that that is going to bring more benefit to those that surround them.
I think a core part of being a very like a well-rounded human being is self-awareness. I think without being aware of yourself and aware of your own story, your journey, the path to where you've come, it's difficult to then have a solid foundation from which to build ahead, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crucial. It's like being a human 101.
Amazing audience, you're hearing it live from Elliot Reeves again. He's the creator of the Elliot Reeves Show and founder of Inspired Edinburgh. You can connect, check out that amazing stuff. Elliot, let's switch gears for a moment now. Let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful, warm, blue Caribbean water. Elliot, what is your earliest childhood memory?
Oh, wow. So my mum and dad, when I was about 18 months, went on a holiday to Singapore and Bali. And they never took me with them. So I've always resented them for it. No, I'm just joking. And they left me with my grandfather. And the earliest memory I have, strangely, is playing with this toy farm thing. It was like old MacDonald had a farm, and I was playing with that. And I seemed to be in the zone, absolutely loving it and having the time of my life. So yeah, that's strangely the earliest memory I have.
Why do you think this memory is so clear? And if so, how do you see that memory connecting to who you are today?
Oh, goodness. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Maybe it was the first time I became aware that my parents weren't there. And so I had this, existential fear maybe set in. But, it seems to be a fond memory. If I can use it as a metaphor for my wider life, is to, take that sense of play into every single day in life. And I still do. I've never lost that sort of childlike sense of wonder and awe for the world and just enjoying myself throughout the entire process of living. And it's very easy to get focused on the sort of minutia of your life, like paying bills and stresses and everything else. But I think I've always had an ability to be able to step back and just be grateful for the experience that is life, regardless.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind with that memory?
Of course you can.
I love the fact that from listening to your conversations, I've realized that you can be all things to all men. And that in itself opens the door to the conversation. What's really cool is in the song Old MacDonald Had a Farm, it's what you do though. Even though the song is about Old MacDonald, I mean, you take the sound of the chicken, right, with the pock pock,
yeah,
there, right? You take the sound of the pig with the oink oink there, just to see the bigger aspect of the conversation and what's required for the end product. I love that.
What an incredibly deep insight. I think we'd be having metaphorical discussions about Old MacDonald's today, but there you go. That's the beauty of it.
If we
Oh.
fast forward to when you were 12 years old, what was your favorite song?
Yeah, this was one of your questions in advance. It's not just something that would probably have been on the top of my head, but Robert Miles' Children was a really iconic and amazing. So I've always been a dance music and trance and progressive house, and that's evolved over time. But yeah, dance music was almost my jam as a youngster, and so Robert Miles' Children of
Sweet.
that generation was one of the greatest, and still today. I mean, he sadly passed in, I think it was 2017 at only 47 years of age. Tragically, he had cancer. That's really, I would say, a big part of his legacy is that song. So yeah, amazing song.
All right, my friend. Well, we've arrived at our destination. But before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Elliot, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
Oh gosh, no.
All right. So you said you were married at the beginning of this conversation. Do you have children?
No.
Do you believe in God?
I am agnostic. I believe in something. I wouldn't call it God.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Oh, no.
How about 3 hours a week?
Yeah, definitely.
What about screen time, the phone and or the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Oh gosh, less.
All right. If you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents who you are, Elliot Reeves, what would you say that is?
I have to say I've been inspired by one of your quotes. Zig Ziglar was a big influence of my life in my early to mid 20s when I was in a slightly darker place. You can have everything in life if you help enough other people get what they want. That's such a great way to live by, because it means that you're being kind of allo or ethnocentric as opposed to egocentric. So that's a big one.
Love it. Elliot, this was such a great pleasure. Before we leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
Come and visit Edinburgh in Scotland. It's the best city in the world. And also tell the people closest to you that you love them, because you don't know when your time here is up.
Couldn't agree with that more. Again, Elliot Reeves, a pleasure, my treasure. Thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.